welcome if you're joining us early. Thanks for being here early. Asma and I are just hanging out. Let us know in the chat where you're coming in from. It's always fun to see what part of the world people are coming from. Um, Asma is in what city? You're in California. We know that.
Yes.
And I am in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got the Midwest and the West Coast covered today. So yeah, in the chat, throw in where you're coming in from. Um, Welcome. Kathy on our team is hanging out in the chat. So you want to catch up with Kathy. If you're a member of our Slack community, you may recognize Kathy, or if you've attended any of our past Intro to AI for Marketers webinars. Actually had as there was like 20 some percent of people who registered for this had registered for an Intro to AI for Marketers webinar, which is kind of interesting. So a lot of like return people coming in.
I'll have to do
Uh,
that. I was,
Denver,
I,
Allison.
I know you've been presenting all week and we're in the stream. Can't even believe you're here, which is great. I'm
Yes.
here, but how did that go?
Yeah. So I was, again, if you're just joining us, we're just kind of hanging out, chit chatting beforehand. I was in New York yesterday. It's like, I don't know about you, but the midweek trips really screw me up. So I left Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. I got back last night at like 6 p.m. and it's only Wednesday. And you're like, oh my God, like still got this thing. But I mean, New York was great. It was like sort of serendipitous because it was a last minute trip I don't know if anybody joining us knows the Brand Innovators crew or has been to a Brand Innovators event, but that was, who I was in New York with. And it was really good. Like I got to hear Kate Brady, who's the head of media innovation at PepsiCo, did a fireside chat right before I went on. And it was fascinating, like just to hear how PepsiCo is approaching innovation and AI and data. It was really cool. And I had been to New York. So since pandemic, I was there in December. It was actually, I've been on stage 3 times since 2020 and twice was in New York. So it's like, it's, it's just good to be back out. Like, have you traveled at all? Have you done any business trips?
No, I'm getting ready to though in
Okay.
July. So
Yeah, it's different. Like you're aware you haven't done it in a while, but then you just sort of like fall into it. And it just, I don't know. I missed being around people. I miss the networking. I miss meeting up for a coffee and like, again, the serendipitous meetings that occur. Like I miss all of that. So it's really nice to just go away for a day and kind of feel like it was semi normal.
give you a taste of Macon.
Yes. Yes. No doubt. So if you're just joining us, we'll get started here in maybe about 30 seconds. We've got Connecticut, Portugal, India,
Amazing.
Denver, New York, Connecticut, another Denver. No people hanging out in Denver. So yeah, welcome everyone. We are going to get started here in a moment with AI for CMOs, the real world playbook for digital transformation. You ready, Esma? You'll get that. Well, I'm going to get the last sip of tea.
Yeah,
Too.
I
I
just
need to
got
get
the
that.
last sip of tea.
Get ready. I told you I just learned a throat coat tea. I don't know if anybody on the call like if you do any public speaking or you do webinars, things like that, throat coat tea is the key. I did it when we'll talk about the book in a moment, but I did 20 hours in studio to record the audio version of my book. And most of that happened over a 3-day period. And I've never spoken that much in a 3-day period. And so I must have drank like, I don't know, 50 cups of throat coat tea and like 50 cough drops just to make it through. So, all right. Well, we are a minute past the hour. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today to kick off the AI for CMOs campaign. We've teamed up with Asma and Persado to raise awareness, understanding, and adoption of AI amongst marketing leaders. The campaign includes this webinar as the kickoff, and there's also an accompanying AI for CMOs report that we'll talk to you about and get you access to. We've also launched a marketing AI show podcast series that features industry leading CMOs, including Andrea Brimmer at Ally, which was an awesome talk. I know you were a big fan of Andrea in that talk, and John Doherty at Brighton Jones. So Asma, it is great to be with you today. Thank you for Persado's partnership in this initiative.
Thank you so much. We are so excited to share this knowledge with this amazing community.
It's such a much needed thing. And we'll get into this a little bit, but just the more CMOs I talk to, the more we realize there's such an opportunity for them. And it's just that they need that understanding, and they need the kind of the guidance of how to get really rolling with this. So this is going to be fun. Kathy McPhillips, our Chief Growth Officer at the Institute, is available via chat. If anything comes up, you need any support, hit Kathy up in the chat. She will help you out. There will be some time for Q&A at the end. I'll be trying to keep an eye on Q&A while we're going, but we'll probably save most of those towards the end. We always get asked, is it going to be available? The answer is yes. The webinar is going to be sent to you tomorrow, as well as the CMO report. So you can go today, if you haven't already, and download the CMO report, but it's gated on the landing page. We will send you an ungated version that gets you access to the webinar and the PDF tomorrow. So if you want to wait for the ungated, our team, Kathy, will email that out tomorrow for everyone. You'll have the webinar on demand and the report. So with that, you ready, Asma? Should we do this? Let's roll. All right. So marketing, artificial intelligence, AI marketing in the future of business. This is the book I was mentioning that we were doing the audio version of. So this comes out, 2 weeks, June 28th. It is available for pre-order now. Asma has an advanced copy because, Asma is amazing. So she got one of the first ones. I got the early from the publisher. They sent me some, and I made sure to get one and mail it to Asma. So this excerpt actually comes from the final chapter of the book, which is titled AI and You. And so what we wanted to do in writing this was make it very personal to people, make it to why should I care? What is the impact AI is going to have on me and my business? So at the Institute, we think about two major things: personal transformation, like career transformation, and business transformation. And some people attend these webinars, read the blog posts, download the ebooks, because they're trying to figure out their own path, and they're trying to figure out, is AI a path forward for me? Is there something in this technology that can drive me forward? Others come in, and oftentimes at that CMO level, VP level, and they're thinking about their organizational structure, their team, where are they going in digital transformation? They hear about AI, it's like, I don't even know what it is, but let me go try and figure it out. So this is the paragraph in that final chapter where I really tried to connect the dots, whether you were, a college student, you were a, mid-level person at the middle of your career, or you were maybe, a very accomplished professional who was trying to figure out, now what in the world do I do? Like, I feel like I've spent my entire career going through digital transformation. It was social media. Maybe it was back to the internet and the advent of email itself. You were already doing marketing, and social media in like 2007, 2008, all of a sudden becomes the thing. And then mobile, every year was going to be the year of mobile, then big data. Like, it's always the next big thing. And that's kind of this idea we've said is like, but this one may be different. This is the one that could transform everything and build on all of these different transformations you've gone through. And so it's a very important thing that marketing leaders, whether you are the CMO today or you aspire to be a CMO or a marketing leader, it's a critical thing that you understand and apply it. The simplest way I like to explain this to people is, your life is AI assisted, your marketing will be too. And what we mean by that is, you have likely, Esma's on the West Coast. She's been up since probably 6 a.m. Esma has probably used AI a dozen times already today. And if you think about all the ways you use it in your daily life as a consumer, you have come to expect a level of convenience and personalization from the technologies, the applications, the software that you use. So if you're on YouTube, it's suggesting videos. Gmail finishes sentences. Spotify learns the music you love and kind of curates it for you. TikTok, the For You page, is an insane algorithm. Like, the way they've managed to do that is amazing. Google Maps, Netflix, Apple, like, AI is just everywhere. The trick is, in business software and marketing and sales and service software, it's not. Like, it is not fully infused into our lives. But yet, as B2B buyers, like, I'm an entrepreneur. If I don't have time to look for software for my business in the middle of the day when I'm doing other things, it might be 10 o'clock at night. I want the level of convenience and personalization I get in my consumer life. I get from my iPhone and the apps on that phone. I want that from the B2B brands that I'm buying from. And so as marketing leaders, what we have to realize is, all of those apps, those technologies on the previous slide, the vast majority of that innovation happened in the last 10 years. And when you think about where are we going to go in the next 10 years, it's this exponential, up and to the right. And that's what we're trying to deal with. We're trying to look for ways to understand what's happening and how, as marketing leaders, do we take advantage of it.
So where are we today? Obviously, our personal life is impacted greatly by AI, but where as a marketing function are we? And today, according to a CMO survey by Duke, it shows that marketers are using AI 12% of the time in their just day to day. But as Paul just shared, get ready to see that hockey stick because the MAII predicts that within the next 3 to 5 years, 80% of what we do as marketers will have some component of it there.
And in this one, we're not saying like it's going to take our jobs and 80%. What we're saying is AI is this tactical thing that's going to be, again, infused into everything you do in your job. And it's going to be there almost as like an assistant to you, and it's going to be ever present. And that's the future that we're trying to plan for as marketing leaders.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it as the AI enabled marketer,
Yep.
and that is around the corner. And I think about it as a superpower. So I'm very excited about it. And this is in line with where CEOs are investing, right? So IBM found that 60% of CEOs are putting gas on accelerating digital transformation, with AI being one of the 3 core areas of tech. And here is where the challenge and opportunity for CMO lies, right? So when asked to identify which other members of the C-suite will play the most crucial role for their organizations over the next 2 to 3 years in terms of digital transformation, CEOs named their tech chiefs at more than twice the rate of their CMOs. And while at first blush, that makes sense, we think the CMOs need to actually play a much larger role. And we'll tell you why. Compounding this is C-suite executives surveyed by the CMO Council say that marketing leadership's number one gap is the modernization of their org, their systems, and just marketing operations overall. And of course, what's contributing to this greatly is we continue to see CMO tenures decline. And they're not in their positions long enough to influence change. But at the heart of digital transformation is ensuring a more personalized, superior customer experience. And the CMO is a natural leader here and has a crucial role to play. And so I'll hand it to Paul to talk about the opportunity ahead.
So what is the opportunity for you, for your team, for your business? The thing I'll get asked a lot is, what is the real impact? Like, where can we see this financially, quantitatively? And the best study I've still seen on this, and then again, there's studies from Deloitte, PwC, McKinsey, every major firm has done some study to try and quantify the impact of AI. What they all agree on is it's in the trillions. This is in terms of annual financial impact. But the thing I loved about the McKinsey Global Institute study is they looked at 9 business functions. So they looked at the impact of AI and other analytics, which is basically versions of AI. They looked at HR, finance, IT, product development, operations, strategy, management. They looked at all these areas. Marketing and sales was the dominant leader in terms of the financial impact. And then they tried to quantify it into these 7 groupings. And what you start to see is the areas within marketing that most CMOs are touching or leading, where they're envisioning AI having this massive financial impact by unlocking value. So an example would be within pricing. If you as a human are trying to figure out the optimal price point for a product or service, there's a very good chance you're leaving money on the table because we can't scale that thinking. We can't think about, if you're an airline, if someone's willing to pay different prices at different times. And so that's the kind of thing where you might unlock $100 here, $50 there, but you do that at scale across hundreds of thousands of interactions. And all of a sudden you're unlocking value. And so that's what they're saying here is you're able to unlock value in all these different areas. And this chart doesn't even get into creativity, which is something we're going to talk about within this talk today. So when you think about this, those 9 areas, and yet marketing and sales is the highest potential value, CMOs can and should be leaders in digital transformation. It should be at 19% of the time CEOs are saying they're going to have this important role. It should be much, much higher. because they should be involved, even if they're not the ones making, if they're leaning on chief data officers, chief digital officers, they may be leaning on other people, but those CMOs need to be playing a very critical role. So the thing to think about here, though, is we're not saying you need to be a data scientist. We're not saying you need to go back to school and get an MBA in a specific area. All we're saying is you have to understand that smarter technologies are being created. The tech you use every day to lead your team, to lead your organization, organizations are building smarter versions of that that are infused with AI that enable you to do your job faster, do it better, achieve greater results, achieve greater personalization. Those sorts of things are becoming possible. And then at a high level, it's really important to think about what is going on at the big companies, at Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, Amazon, IBM, Salesforce, Adobe, the companies that have been leading in AI for 2 decades. They think it is the future and it is now. So this is from Satya at Microsoft saying it's the defining technology of our times. They want to turn every industry into an AI first industry, use data, turn into AI capabilities, generate real business results and transformation. So what's happening is these big platform companies have AI research labs. You hear about it at Meta. The AI research lab at Meta just took a reorg. But what they're doing is they're putting billions of dollars into developing AI capabilities that then get diffused into the rest of the market. And so what's possible for marketing and sales and service leaders is changing so fast. And it's opening up the possibility of a next generation of marketing leaders emerging. And when we say next gen, we're not saying it's age banded. We're not saying these are like the college students coming out in their 20s are going to figure this all out. We're saying the current and future leaders of our industry, all they have to do is just embrace this idea, embrace this fact that there is smarter technology out there, and then go seek that technology out before it becomes infused, while there's a competitive advantage to be had if you have this knowledge and your peers don't. And so when we think about next gen marketers, we think about their ability to deliver personalization experiences. Again, I started off saying, like, think about your experiences as a consumer, and you expect that everywhere now. And modern marketers, these next gen leaders, know that, and they design their technology infrastructure and their strategies to achieve that, unlocking creative possibilities. We'll go through some examples of things that if you don't understand AI, you don't even realize what's possible right now from a creative realm. And then the most important thing at that C level is real business results, revenue growth, profits, efficiencies, really thinking about the impact on your talent and your org. So I know this is something you think about too, Asma, and that, at Persado. So I didn't have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a very important point that we should just reiterate that this is going to touch every aspect of marketing. And probably as marketers, you'll see your ops and impacted by AI first, or as Paul said, pricing, your offers, but it is going to also include how come up with creative, what ideas are resonating with your customer, what concepts should you invest in, what language should you generate, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So it's really exciting how encompassing this is and the power it'll be able to drive for all of our businesses.
Yeah, and I know I've shared this with you, Asma, before, but like I spent a lot of time trying to think about AI adoption and where is it most likely to occur. And you hit on one of the things that I thought about as a major variable, which is industries or businesses where other areas of the business, like operations, management, data, they've been using AI for a decade. You just may not have been piloting it or scaling it in the marketing realm, but you may be in an organization that has successfully scaled AI in other areas of the business. And so you don't have to work hard to convince them of the potential of it when you're in an organization that's already doing it in other areas. Like healthcare comes to mind. They've been using AI in healthcare for 15 years in many really innovative ways. You don't need to convince a healthcare leader that AI has potential in marketing and sales. You just got to prove the business cases for it. Whereas if you're in an organization that hasn't done this at a high level, you have more education to do internally. It doesn't mean you can't do it. You just got to work more for it. So this is kind of, I mean, in a way, almost the call to action from this and from the report and this whole idea of the AI for CMOs campaign is you can be a next gen leader. You can do it now. Like there's nothing preventing you. I don't care if you made your name in the industry creating amazing ads. or as a brand marketer or a communications, like whatever it is, like it doesn't matter how you got to that role or if you're a step or two away from it. Every marketing leader can understand this stuff. And again, we're going to hopefully give that to you today. You can apply this stuff and we'll give you a couple quick frameworks where you could go do that today. And then you can leverage it to truly drive digital transformation. And Asma, I know you've shared with me someone that you look up to, that you see sort of as a model of what's possible here. You want to talk to us about that for a moment?
Yeah. I mean, one of my business heroes is a woman named Kristen Limcow, and she started at Chase in PR as a PR manager, rose to become their CMO, and is now the CEO of Chase Wealth Management. And when she assumed her position as CEO, as CMO, she was told by her leadership team, like, you have to get very smart on the tech. And she made her CIO her best friend. She called him Yoda, and just immersed herself in the tech and really wanted to understand AI and machine learning to the point where she became such a huge advocate and was speaking very everywhere she could about AI. She was one of the ambassadors for Chase around all of their AI initiatives, and she talked to how she deeply believed in her bones, as she said, that the most fundamental um, and most important development in the history of marketing will be machine learning and AI. And for her, it was because it allows us to understand our customers like never before and actually makes us more human in our marketing. So,
Yeah, I love that background, and I'm maybe a little biased because I came out of journalism school. So again, like when I tell people you don't need to be a machine learning engineer, a data scientist, you don't even have to be tech savvy per se. The way I learned AI, and I've been studying for a decade now, was as a storyteller. I just wanted to understand it to tell the story of it. And so I read all the books and I took a couple courses, but I'm not the tech geek. Like I'm not the guy who builds the stuff. And so I feel like because of where I'm coming from as a journalism background, as a PR communications professional to start my career, this stuff is extremely approachable. If you tell the story in the right way, and that's our mission here, is like we want to just make this make sense to people so they care and they realize what the potential truly is for them.
and marketers, I think, are just naturally inclined. We are a group endlessly curious
Yeah.
or problem solvers, and AI is going to help us unlock and solve a lot of thorny issues we've been having in terms of our marketing efforts.
Which leads us into the next section, a perfect transition. So what is it? So we're talking like maybe you're this first time, it's like, okay, this sounds interesting. I still don't understand what in the world they're talking about. So now we get into the section where hopefully we make it all make perfect sense to you. So one of the first things as that storyteller back in 2011, 2012, I was trying to figure out this space. Like, what is this tech? How can I use it as a marketer, at that time as an agency owner and an author? And so I went in search of a definition that made sense to me. And I eventually stumbled upon this one from Demis Hassabis, the co-founder and CEO of Google DeepMind. AI is the science of making machines smart. What he means by that is the software you use every day to do your email, your CRM, your automation, your ad management, your social media management, your SEO, all these things. It's just software that a human coded to do something. It gave it the ability to do a thing. And then you as the marketer write all these rules to tell it what to do. Send to this list, use this subject line, send it at this time, use this CTA. Like you're just writing rules. The software never gets better. It doesn't learn, it doesn't improve unless you go learn and improve on your own. The idea with AI is the software, the machine can get better. It can improve what it does. It can make you better as a marketer because it's learning and improving all the time. And so that concept became really tangible to me. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So we had these machines, the software and hardware that didn't learn on its own. It didn't get better. Now it's able to get better. And I started thinking of all the ways you could apply that. So we kind of borrowed inspiration from Demis, and we said marketing artificial intelligence is the science of making marketing smart. So it's not dependent just on the marketer to go learn the new features and tool sets. So it's helpful to have a few basic definitions. You do not, again, need to know how to go build machine learning models when you get done here, but it's really helpful as a business leader to understand when you're talking to your data team or your analytics team or your CTO, CIO, you're kind of on a more level playing field with them when you understand the basis. So AI is just an umbrella term for the tools and technologies that make machines smart. The primary subset is machine learning. That is where it's a very literal definition. That is where the machine learns, new data comes in, new inputs come in. People open this email, they clicked on this link, they responded to this ad, whatever that input is, and then it evolves what it recommends or predicts is going to happen next. So it's trying to predict behaviors and outcomes. That's fundamentally what machine learning does. And for most of you, you never actually need to probably understand more than that. Like that's all it really is data in, improving it, outputs and predictions out. Deep learning is trying to give machines human-like abilities of sight, of understanding, of language generation, ability to write things, the ability to talk. So like Siri and Alexa, the way they understand what you're saying and respond to you is through deep learning, a form of machine learning. So that's kind of like the hierarchy. But now to break that into more tangible areas, we like to think of it in three main categories. The first is language. And I like to show Google Smart Compose here because this is a very practical application that many of us use or experience. Now, what's happening in Gmail Smart Compose is it's trying to predict the next word you're going to write. Now, Google has been working on this technology probably north of a decade with some of the smartest AI researchers in the world. And it's amazing tech. The trick here is like, it doesn't actually make you that much more efficient at sending an email. It's just predicting words, but it's really cool tech. But it's doing it through AI. It's language understanding. It looks at learns from past emails. So it's understanding the context of things you've sent and who you've corresponded with. And it's able to generate language. You see this with Zoom. If you uses Otter.ai to turn your voice into text, it transcribes it. You see it in translation. So language is everywhere. It's a massive area. This is an area where Persado plays, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The next is vision. So again, you're giving the machine the ability to understand language and generate language. You're also giving the machine the ability to see and understand images and video and generate images and video. And so there's been a major breakthrough in the last 2 months in this area in particular, the image generation. So what we're seeing here is Imagen from Google, which was just released like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. What's happening is they've trained the machine on a text prompt to generate an original image. They're not going and pulling stock photos in from a bunch of different sites and mashing stock photos together. The machine is, quote unquote, understanding the prompt being given by the human and generating these images. GPT or the OpenAI, who also built GPT-3, released something in April called DALL-E 2 that does very similar concept. This is the kind of thing I was saying, like, if you don't follow along with AI and you don't understand the creative possibilities that are being unlocked, you would have no idea that the future of graphic design, illustration, stock photography, all of these areas where this plays may have transferred advertising. Like if you just give the copy to the machine and the machine generates the image for the ad, it changes things. And so as a CMO, like you need to understand the transformations that are happening because it affects everything about the future. The last one is prediction. Now, prediction is almost overarching over all of this. It's the machine predicting outcomes, behaviors, things like that. But personalization is the fundamental thing here. So that you hear personalization all the time at the C level, within organizations, within the marketing industry. It's what we're all trying to achieve. And personalization is not insert name, insert company, insert some other field. What we're talking about within personalization goes well beyond that. And I'll turn it over to Asma to talk about personalization and AI a little bit more. I think you're muted, Asma.
I think,
There we go.
thank you. I think all of us as marketers are seeing that consumers are demanding higher and higher levels of personalization. And they're demanding that because it helps them deal with the digital onslaught that all of us are facing. If something is personalized to you, you are more likely to notice it. And the next phase of digital transformation needs a level of personalization and sophistication that is unprecedented and humanly impossible. You cannot write a million messages for a million customers. So, and so where AI allows for this huge leap in personalization is because it is allowing us to use business data in new and unique ways. And I'm going to talk about Persado as an example here of how we do that. So using AI today, we can serve billions of consumers with individually relevant touch points in real time. As Paul shared, McKinsey estimates that AI will drive 6 trillion in annual value for sales and marketing alone. McKinsey also predicts that AI driven personalized communications will generate 1.7 to $3 trillion in value alone. And so, why such a huge impact in this area alone? If you think about it, there is too many brands still focusing on a one size fits all approach to messaging that is focused on the offer or the incentive. And they don't address the number one driver of conversion, which is the for personalized language that specifically speaks to each individual and motivates them to act. Slide, please. And so, what the Persado platform does is we have turned this ability to motivate into software. And it is a first of its kind software. It identifies and makes factors that prompt consumer behavior. And so we use AI, natural language generation, machine learning together with it, the only knowledge base of language that is connected to to generate unique narratives that speak to each individual personally with the objective of motivation.
And we're not going to get into the depth here on this presentation, but you hear a lot about like GPT-3 and other language models that do this generation. And this is where it becomes really important as a CMO to understand, where is the training coming from? How does the machine actually customize and personalize at our customer level, not, across an aggregated database of people and trying to just fit it into specific groupings. And so this is the kind of stuff, again, we're not going to go deep into this today. This is the kind of thing you want to be able to talk to your vendors about. You want to be able to drill and say, well, how is it learning? What is the data source that's helping it figure this stuff out? How is it specific to my customers? And so again, like, time for another webinar, another session. But this is a really important slide to me because it shows what a legit AI vendor looks like, because they're not all legit. There's a lot of AI, ML, they just throw terms out there. And then when you try and dig in, you realize they're not actually building smarter solutions. And so this is like a cool example of what it looks like when a company actually knows what they're talking about and is building a smarter solution to make you a better marketer.
Yeah. And so I wanted to highlight the word motivation here because a lot of the data we have that we're using today around our consumers' behavior is demographic. There's some basic psychographic data, but it doesn't get to the heart of who our customer is and what is driving them to act. And it doesn't get to the heart of speaking to them in an individual, authentic, personalized way. And that is what Persado's AI is unlocking. And to my point earlier, when I said my marketing hero, Kristen Lemkow, talks about how AI can make us more human as marketers, especially in the digital realm. We can only do this if we're able to speak to each of our customers in a way they want to be spoken to. And that's what we unlock. This also, getting back to McKinsey's estimates, unlocks what one of our customers described as eye-watering results. So, just as a quick example, we work with a ton of leading global brands, consumer brands around the world, and for one Fortune 500 retailer here in the US, we generated $15 million in incremental revenue in a year by scaling Persado across multiple channels. And what we're talking about here is when you deliver personalized messages to your customers, it's unlocking tectonic growth for the companies to adopt this type of AI first approach.
And this is actually, so Roger was asking a question in the chat I just saw about examples. And so Roger, hopefully this gives you that example. It's that ability to personalize, understand the motivation, understand the why, what are they looking for, why, and then across the different channels, the web, the mobile, the email, to be able to inject that personalized communication to drive those actions. So it's a great question and a great prelude to this slide, Roger. All right. So the final area of this, and then we'll kind of open it up to questions, is this idea of giving you a framework to think about this. So this is in the AI for CMOs report, and it goes a little more extensive. And then the next level up is that actually the origin of this framework is a chapter in the Marketing Artificial Intelligence book. So, and then it goes much deeper within there. So what you'll find is it's actually, again, what we want to do is make AI approachable and actionable. We want to help you realize what it is and how to apply it. So the first thing you have to think about is you have to be strategic in your choices of AI and your use of AI, because it has to solve real business problems. You do not need an AI strategy to go buy AI technology. You don't need AI technology necessarily, but you need software that makes you better at your business, helps you grow faster, grow smarter. And moving forward, it's going to be required that AI is a part of that. It's going to be what enables that software to do those things. And so when you go in first and foremost, when you're thinking about AI and its impact on you as a CMO or a marketing leader, these are the kinds of outcomes that AI should enable you to have. Again, you don't want to buy an AI tool just to buy an AI tool. It needs to fit within some reason. So it can be growth. It can be that personalization, driving costs down, ROI, insights from your data. We all have more data than we can imagine or know what to do with. How do we learn from that data and take actions? You don't want to wait every 3 months before you look at a report to take action. Or if you could surface that in real time, that's the kind of stuff we're looking for. And then the repetitive data-driven tests are key. The second thing you need to know, and this is where your data people can become your best friend, data is fundamental to success, especially as you scale. Now, you can do a couple of pilot projects like an AI writing tool or a subject line writing tool, or maybe an ad spend tool, where you don't need a ton of original data. Small businesses could do this stuff. You can just go get a tool for $49 a month and you can start experimenting with AI. But when you're thinking about scale, you have to understand all the sources of your data, how it's structured, how it's cleaned, how it's maintained moving forward, and then how that data informs smarter decision-making and personalization across your organization. Now, again, you as the CMO don't have to be the data expert, but you need to understand how critical those people are to your tenure and success as a CMO. And so, like you were saying, Asma, earlier, make them your best friend. Like, take them out for coffee or drink or tea, and just understand what they do, understand the value they can create for you. Too often in big enterprises, there's a lack of understanding of the value each department or division or silo can create. And we forget that if we could just understand each other, we might find opportunities to unlock tremendous value. The third is to become an informed buyer of AI-powered technology. Now, the reason this one's so important, like, I'm not saying you have to deeply understand any of the AI stuff to do this. But what you need to understand is this chart, which is the martech landscape from Scott Brinker, Chief Martech. If you haven't seen it, don't know it, you can't go to a marketing conference without seeing this slide. There's over 9,000 dots on here, which each represent a brand or a technology. The vast majority of these software products have no AI in them or very basic AI. The martech landscape is not very advanced today in terms of its adoption and application of AI to make you a better marketer. That is going to change. It is going to be infused. These companies will become obsolete in the coming years if they don't infuse AI into what they do. But you can go find that smarter tech now. If you look at your martech stack and you say, okay, here's my 3 core martech companies, and then here's the 25 other ones I'm using. And if you just do an assessment and say, okay, are these companies leading the way in AI? Do they have a team of people at their organization in charge of building smarter solutions that make me and my team better at our job? And if they don't have a point of view on AI, they can't talk to you about how they're building more intelligence into their product, it's probably not the right vendor for your tech stack moving forward. And certainly, as you go to buy and build out your tech stack, you absolutely need to be talking to those organizations about their AI roadmap. How are you making your software smarter? What features are you adding that are going to save me time and money on my team and give us a greater chance of achieving our success? The next one, and this is the one you can go do today, pilot projects. So what happens when you scale AI, you first start often with very narrow pilot projects, very tactical things. And so this visual is actually from a workbook we built for piloting AI, where you just go through and create a list of all the things you or your team do every day, every week, every month, how many hours a month you spend doing it, how much you're spending on the tech to do it. And then you make this leap, say, okay, if AI could do this, if it could intelligently automate a portion of this use case, how meaningful would that be to us on a 1 to 5 scale? And then you just rate the things that are 4 or 5 that would be like transformational, and then just go search AI for context strategy or AI for blog post writing, whatever it is. And someone on your team could be using an AI tool tomorrow. And it's that easy. Like, and then you start stacking those successes. That's how you eventually scale, is you do these individual projects that don't cost a bunch of money, don't take a bunch of time. And what you're looking for are things that are data driven or should be data driven. So you're making decisions that's using data now or should be using data, and you're just using instinct right now. Repetitive processes, something that you can say, these are the 7 steps we go through to do this thing. If there is a definable process, there is a very good chance someone has built a tool to do that smarter and faster. And the third is it making a prediction about an outcome or behavior? Now, it doesn't have to be all 3 of these things, but if it is, you definitely have a use case. It could be just one of them. So a couple of quick examples, use cases tend to make this very tangible. Advertising, audience targeting, budget allocation, ad layouts. You create one layout, the AI creates 100 variations for all your different channels, crops the images, adjusts the copy, all that stuff. Developing the ad copy, personalizing the ad copy, gaining insights into ad performance. Content marketing is a huge area. This goes back to that language concept, analyzing your existing content, writing copy for blog posts, articles, social shares, whatever it may be. SEO strategy, localizing through translation, write it in English, have it translated into 5 languages. Google Translate in particular has gotten very good. AWS has pre-trained models to do this stuff. This is all very accessible. Stuff as a CMO you couldn't have even done 3 years ago, you can probably do in 24 hours with the right people on your team, looking at the right technologies, and then recommending content. Humans, marketers should not in the future be saying, if they downloaded this ebook, then send them this promotion. Or if they don't, that is impossible for humans to write all those rules, especially at scale. And then the last, email, which Asma talked about earlier, you need to be thinking about things like smart newsletters that alter the links based on behavior. Like Medium does an amazing job with this. I don't have any Medium users out there, but they send me a customized newsletter. I want to click on every link every time. It drives me nuts. Like, they're really good at predicting what I want to read. Deliverability, send time, copywriting, these are all these areas. The fifth thing is, and this kind of goes back to that first, think strategically. You want to define the priority business goals and challenges. You want to know, and this is what's happening in marketing all the time, but you want to know how what you're doing in marketing funnels up to the most important KPIs to the C-suite. So that when you're talking about the impact of AI, what you're actually talking about is things like reduction of cost. So we're looking at ways to intelligently automate data-driven tasks, or acceleration of revenue or growth. Because at the end of the day, that's really what a CMO's job is. We have to grow. And so AI is just a vehicle to grow. The CEO may not care that you're using AI, most likely won't care that it's AI, but you know that you're finding smarter ways to drive growth. And that's what's critical. The next one, when you look to scale, when you want to go beyond pilot projects, you have to have leadership engaged in the process. And the reason I say this is because when you look at this curve, realistically, we are somewhere in the innovator to very low level early adopter phase of AI. The vast majority of marketing organizations are not scaling this. Many of them aren't even piloting it yet, knowingly piloting it. They may have someone on their team trying to run a pilot. And so what's going to happen is it's not always going to work. You're going to try some new tech that doesn't do what it promised, or has some unexpected involvement from your team that like requires a ton of time and energy that you didn't know about. And so it's not always going to work. You don't want to fail once. You don't want to do one project and then have the C-suite say, Well, that was a complete waste of money. You just blew $100,000 and we got nothing out of it. We're not doing any more AI pilot projects. So they need to understand what it is you're doing. And then from there, as you start to move forward, you start to think about, what does the team look like? And this is where I'm trying to think of a marketing leader I've talked to who is actually thinking really forward about this, but this is where I think the true next gen CMOs will separate themselves. So I will give you an example. Stitch Fix hires astrophysicists for their marketing team to build personalization engines. So people who spent their careers modeling the universe now model personalized apparel for people through an app. That is a totally different way of thinking about marketing and personalization. So there is a chance that in the near future, you're going to have someone's job is just to train the AI. It's to provide the inputs that gives the AI the learning to do the thing. And an AI ops team, a chief algorithm, like, I don't know what they're going to be. This is all like future thinking, but it's going to be different. Like, it's going to fundamentally change the kind of people you need on your team to do this stuff. And then that gets into this whole idea of, we have to do this together. People are afraid of this stuff. You may have been afraid of it. Hopefully you're not anymore, but I have talked in front of tens of thousands of people about AI. I get asked all the time, is it going to take my job? If you go in and have this great vision for AI, and we're going to, get rid of these repetitive processes and cut time and costs, people fear for their jobs if they don't understand it. If you talk about using GPT-3 or some copywriting tool to write blog posts, the people on your team who write blog posts say, well, wait a second, what am I going to do? You have to involve them in this process. You have to explore what it's capable of and find out what it means to them and your team as a result of that. And Asma, you and I talked about this one leading in. It's like, well, where do you go for this? So I don't know if, like, I mean, what we talked about, like, vendors themselves are starting to do the education, right? Like, it's,
Sure. I mean, I'm going to start with the Marketing AI Institute. Obviously, there are organizations out there that are solely focused on helping marketers evolve to become next gen marketers. And yeah, the industry is definitely stepping in as well, creating academies, which we're getting ready to introduce as well, to just fill any gaps and to give people more confidence in terms of what it means to use AI in your day to day. And I think they're only going to increase. So and I do think the CMO needs to think strategically about the formal training as well, but also encourage their folks and teams to go out there because there's so many great resources that people can be tapping into.
the tech companies need marketers who understand this stuff. It's why you see ads for Microsoft AI. It's why Meta has Meta AI. It's why Google has a separate account for their AI. The big players are investing billions to make you care that they have smarter solutions. And so they need people educated on this stuff. So that's that. Again, the vendors, the associations are going to have to do it. Everyone is going to have to come together to really realize what's possible with AI. This one, and we got two more, and then we'll kind of like roll into questions. But this is an abstract one, but it's really critical. What's going to happen is, while humans have to train the machines, we have to give the inputs that the machine learns from. We as humans are going to learn things about ourselves from the machines. The best example I have of this is, there's an incredible documentary called AlphaGo, where the DeepMind team, Demis Hassabis and his team, built a machine called AlphaGo that defeated Lee Sedol, the world Go champion, at the game of Go. And what happened in his defeat, in his, like, I mean, it is painful to watch, human to human, to see what happened to this person who thought he was the best of the best and no machine could ever compete with him. And it devastated him to lose. And yet, in a post interview, he said, I learned something about myself. I learned something about humanity and creativity. It taught me to be a better Go player. It changed the way he looked at the game of Go. And I think as leaders, what we're going to have to accept is, AI is getting very, very good at a lot of tasks that we do, but it's also enriching what we're capable of doing strategically and creatively. And if you embrace that and you say, how can I learn from the AI? That's what's going to give you, again, this competitive advantage moving forward.
And this is actually so important. And we're seeing more and more teams that we work with where we're doing quarterly lunch and learns where they're just like, share the insights. What have you learned this quarter about my audience, my customer, what they care about, and my industry? So tell me what other retailers are seeing and how people are responding to language. And they are just so hungry for the insights. And it's so exciting to see. They're as excited about that as when we help them generate their campaign. So I think this is huge, and it'll only help us improve as marketers.
And then the final is this, again, a little more abstract, somewhat aspirational. You touched on it earlier, but this idea of becoming more human. And to me, like this is my son from a few years ago. And I don't know, this image just always created wonder for me. Like it's just creativity and wonder and innocence and like all these things that I think of when I think of us being humans. And I may be, um, I don't know. I think sometimes I'm too optimistic about what's possible, but I think that if AI is used right, it can free us up to be better professionals, to be better people, because we can focus on the things that do remain uniquely human, like empathy, like understanding the buyers, understanding our customers in different ways, building personal relationships with people. Like it should free us up to do these things. And if we can do that and we can think differently about those relationships and we can think about them as people, then we can alter the way we think about what marketing is capable of doing.
Couldn't agree more. Wonderful way to end.
All right. And I see we've got questions lining up. So the final thoughts here is don't wait for the world to get smarter around you. So I start off saying you got these 9,000 companies. Many of them aren't using AI. You've got this AI all infused in your daily life, but not in your business and marketing software. You can go seek out the ones who are building it though. There's thousands of vendors who have built AI into their product, hundreds of them who have done it really well. And if you can find the right company, the right partners, match it with your team and a vision for what you can achieve, you can do some incredible things. You can become the change agent. And again, we may have people on this AI for CMOs call who are interns or managers or directors or VPs. I don't care where you're at. You can ascend to be that change management person, that leader for digital transformation. You don't have to have a CMO title to be the one who figures this stuff out within your organization. And that's the opportunity, this next gen marketing leader, to think about yourself as someone who can drive personalization, who can unlock creative potential, who can drive business results. That's what the opportunity is in front of you today. And so the CMO report, as we said, if you joined us late, this webinar is based on the AI for CMOs ebook, which is available now. You can grab it at aiforcmos.com. That is a gated page. We will be sending you the ungated tomorrow with this webinar on demand. So if you want to wait till tomorrow and get it ungated, it will be in your inbox. And then for the people who are ready to take the next step, who really want to embrace AI into their career, drive transformation in the career, drive transformation in the organization, we would love to have you join us in Cleveland. We were back in person for the first time since 2019. It would be amazing for you to be there and be a part of it. So there's a code CMO 400 if you want to join us. I am, as I stated before the webinar started, I was in New York yesterday, and just being with other humans was an amazing experience. And I am very much looking forward to doing it again. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go in and pull up the Q&A and see what we've got here. And then Kathy, if you want to surface any in the chat that maybe are hiding there. Okay, we've got Bill. What level of scale is necessary to make ML AI worth the investment? So I think, and Asma, if you have anything to add on this one, let me know. But I look at this as a very use case specific answer. It depends on what you're going to use it for. So if you, an example be email subject line writing. Like if you needed to do that, it needs to learn from a lot of data. But if you're using a provider that has access to millions of emails that have been sent, it can learn from the anonymized data. So it doesn't necessarily mean it needs a ton of your data, or it can be specialized to a vertical. So like Persado has a ton of learnings in retail and other industries. And there's a good chance that they're applying those learnings from day one while it then is learning your specific performance data. So it just depends on what the use case is. If you want to go use it to do copywriting, like a copy.ai or Jasper we talked about, where you can just help with some social shares, like creative ideas, you just give it the page and it just like looks at the page and starts creating stuff. It doesn't need a ton of data to do it. So do you agree with that concept, Esma, that it really just depends on the use case?
Absolutely. And I
Okay.
do think the examples you gave are also very quick hit, easy to implement, easy to experiment to see if they're right fits for you.
Okay. Somebody asked about AI for small business, $50 a month. So I think I said that at some point. Again, it depends on the use case, but there are a lot of those tools we showed on the slides, especially the content marketing slide, where they have either a free demo or, a limited trial, or, for 49 or 99 a month, you can do it. So we can send some information out. We did a blog post recently on like 36 copywriting tools that had a bunch of them that had, whether they have free demos or not. So yeah, a lot of those tools though do have it in that space. And social media tools is another one that has a lot of that stuff. So will AI personalize whole websites, not just copywriting? Simon asked that question. That's a good one. Persado just does like specific campaigns, right? It's like landing page copy and things tied to specific campaigns, right? Like you're not building websites with language models.
Yeah, but we can help also on certain pages on a website, anywhere that especially you're trying to drive action or conversion,
Yeah.
help in terms of supporting that.
And at a higher level, what I would tell you on the copywriting thing is think of AI as a writing assistant when it comes to that stuff, like gives you inspiration for ways to do your language and messaging. Again, if you're trying to use if you're a small business and you just want a tool to kind of help you with some ideation, it can do that. It is not going to write you a blog post that you don't have to edit or refine or review. Like we're not there with copywriting long form content in particular. It's really more of a supporting tool that kind of incrementally helps you improve your copywriting. And then you can use it like a Grammarly where it's laying over almost like a superhuman editor that can help you like improve your writing. So that's the way to think about where we're at with copywriting these days. How can vendors help prospect employees not fear for their jobs? That Daniel, it's a great question. I brought that up. So the fear factor is real. Now, interestingly enough, we did a state of marketing AI research with Drift that we released last year, and we're actually releasing this year's on June 30th. So the new data is coming out, and I may misquote this slightly, but I'm going to be really close. We asked about obstacles to adoption of AI, and I think the new data tells us only 12% of respondents said fear of AI is one of the reasons that's preventing them from adopting it. So and that's validated. Last year was 14%. So it seems like a common thing you hear, but 2 years of data tell us that it's actually not preventing it. But it's still something you have to address. I think the more real thing is at the leader level, you present AI. Like I did this for an organization that had 160 marketers in the room. I did the intro to AI talk. Like, here's what it is, here's what it does. It does language, it does vision, it does all these cool things. It was a 1 hour talk, answered some questions, you know, I leave. The next day, we got a lot of people like worried about their jobs. Like all of a sudden they realized where AI was and what it was capable of. And even though I said in the talk, you don't have to worry about your jobs, do these tactical things. These were people who do things that I featured as something AI is going to get very good at doing. And so what I told them is you need ongoing education. You can't have a talk and then expect everyone gets it. Sometimes this stuff takes multiple sessions before hearing the same thing over and over again before you develop a comfort level with it. That intro to AI for marketers class I mentioned, we've done it 11 times now, like 4,000 people have registered for it. We have had a lot of people take it multiple times. It's the exact same presentation every time. But for them, it's like developing that comfort level, hearing those same talking points over and over again. It's just smart technology. It's not going to take your job. Like, it helps people kind of develop this peace of mind around it that they can then go apply. Like, I don't, as my view, I mean, you're a marketer who's learning this stuff and applying it. Like, did you fear it originally? Like, is this something you've grown more comfortable with over time and over the years that we've known each other and you've been actively involved in like product at Persado and messaging there?
Well, I think I'm different because I was so intrigued by what Persona
Right.
did, and obviously that's why I'm here. I've seen really interesting examples, though, of how companies have introduced AI, where marketing leaders have been very effective in ensuring that people are comfortable, that they understand how where their creativity and human amazingness comes in versus where the AI can help them really scale and test and learn. And we had one actually CDO when he was over multiple brands at a retailer, and he created a little bit of competition between two of the brands and ran pilots. And again, it was a pilot, getting people comfortable, but also made it a little competitive between the two brands. So they got really interested in amping up their results. And then they were able to see firsthand what the power of AI could unlock for them without feeling threatened. And I thought that was just such a really insightful, enlightened way for that leader to be introducing a new tech and getting people excited about a period. It could be applied beyond AI, but for that team, the ones that didn't get to use Persona were like, wait, we're next in line. Put us on the list. So that was just a really smart way to introduce new tech and get people comfortable with it and excited about it.
There was a book I read very early in my career called The End of Marketing as We Know It by Sergio Zeman, who was the former CMO of Coca-Cola back in, I think, the 80s and 90s. And he quoted a proverb that said, tell them and they will forget, show them and they will remember, involve them and they will understand. And that always stuck with me as an early in my career. When it applies to customers, it applies to your own team. Like, you have to involve them in the thing. They have to experience it for them to understand it. Me giving this talk, you and I doing this together, like, it's going to get you down the path, but it is not going to create true understanding yet. You have to go test the tools. You have to go do the thing. You have to take those next steps to truly understand and embrace it yourself. And then from there, you can take it to your team and really drive that innovation. Which is probably a good point to stop. I will say, Allison asked a question about social media campaigns. Allison, we have a page on the site, AI for Social Media. Kathy will send it to you. It actually gets like 30 or 40,000 page views a year. It's one of our most popular pillar pages. So there's a ton of use cases, tech recommended for social media in there. With that, Asma, phenomenal. Like, thank you again for the partnership. I'm excited to see, hopefully this campaign moves the industry forward. We create value for CMOs and next gen leaders, and they take and run with it within their organizations and move these messages forward. So I'm just grateful for you, for your time, for the Persado team, and our partnership together.
Well, we love working with all of you, and I just thank you and thank the audience today for your time. And we are very excited to kick this campaign off.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk again with you soon.
Bye.